Could you please discuss your artwork and your process?
My artwork really comes out of a lifetime of asking questions with my pen, beginning, and then my brush. And it didn't come out of the desire to be an artist per se, but really a way of making sense of my inner life, my inner turmoil. Because like most teenagers, I was troubled, and I realized that many of the things that troubled me weren't words, they weren't other people, it was inside of myself. How do I make sense of what's going on? How do I make sense of the darkness and the difficulty? And I was having sleep paralysis and nightmares and out-of-body experiences and inner experiences that really inundated me at an early age, really about 14 or 15. And or maybe even earlier, but I was thrown into my unconscious, and I became inundated with the realization that I wasn't crazy, but more like a Twilight Zone episode. I had to find the tools to allow me to navigate it, because to talk about it did sound crazy. You can look at my art and you understand what I mean. In other words, much of what is now manifest as my art came out of, in a way, survival tools. About how do I not go mad? How do I tell a story, at least to myself, that helps put together this world in ways that I know the world won't put together for me. I have to figure out how to do it for myself. And that's why when I talk about creativity or following one's path, it's not to be an artist any more than I meant to be an artist, but I turned out to be quite a good artist because I didn't have the conceit of being one. I didn't even have the conceit of how to be a modern artist. I was simply using the creative act as a way of connecting with energy, connecting with breath, connecting with emotion, and being an actor as well. That was my job. My job was, how do I embody another character? How do I live another life without judging that life? Because if I'm playing somebody I don't like, how do I not let that poison the water? So my dislike for the character becomes part of that character, because the character doesn't dislike himself necessarily, or not the way I dislike him. So I had to give myself to the character, to figure out how to put myself to the side, to not take things personally. And I didn't realize it, but the gift I was given as an artist was that my dad was a painter. And he always said, if you can't talk about something, paint it. But he didn't say, be an artist. He said, use the tools of creativity to connect with that which can't be talked about, can't be reasoned with, can't be figured out, but must be let out. In a sense, it must be expressed. And when it's expressed, we look at it like looking at a cloud, and suddenly it starts to tell us a story if we listen. And in that story, it starts to reflect back on us, you know what, maybe this is how you and I can have a conversation. And that's what I understood the creative spirit was saying. That when you can turn away from a career as an artist, because that's about self-image, when you can turn away from having to make a living at, but giving attention to, this is important to me. I have to survive. And I have to have a relationship with the creative spirit, at least between myself and it. And if it's good, or if it grows into something, I'll share it, like a gardener. But I won't use it to find myself. And I always felt this with acting, too. As I said, there were two types of actors. There was a type of actor that brought his creative, or her creative life to the role. But they weren't looking for themselves. They were exploring a character. Then there was another type of actor that was looking for an identity as an actor. And that was a whole different can of worms. And that's why I feel that much of our art and artists is really that sort of side of things. Looking for the identity of being an artist. Looking for the recognition of being loved as that artist. Being lifted onto the arms and shoulders of those that revere you because your message is so important. And you finally fed the world everything that it needs because it's been missing it for so long. But I've discovered it's not that way. And the reason why so often the creative being is crestfallen and driven into himself or herself saying, I thought this mattered. And it's kind of not even mattering to me because I'm so sad. And that's when the creative spirit whispers to us, I want you to live with me. I can't heal you if you're trying to prove something with me. I can't participate with you if you're not a partner, if you're a critic. I want you to give yourself permission to close the door to be intimate, to not use your creative or your imaginative energies to prove anything to the world that you think it isn't, but to turn away from that challenge and challenge yourself as a gardener to say, maybe if I sow seeds of saying this really matters to me, and maybe art is about not going mad and surviving our own inner turmoil, then maybe I can start to say, it's not how the world defines art that matters. It's how I define it for myself. And if we live in a time that says these things don't matter, well, they matter to me. And that's the thing I feel here, is my art says in place, in kind, in environment, and in beauty, and in truth, that this is the outcome of a lifetime that said, at least here, I want to tell you I love you. At least here, I want to say to the creative spirit, you matter. At least here, I want to look around to the library and say, I don't want to judge the books. And I know some of them are dark, but I want to look at darkness as an artist looks at darkness, or an actor looks at darkness, or a musician looks at darkness, and understand that this is part of the context from which you will draw the light. It is not that it is light, it is that you discover the light. So that's maybe the blessing that I discovered from my process and journey, which is give yourself permission to close the door and say, I'll share this when it's worth sharing, but I'll make sure to share my life and time with the creative spirit, because even if no one reads my poem, at least I wrote it, and the creative spirit heard it. And that's what holds us. So trust yourself. Thanks.